The Unscripted Podcast.
Ben, when did you hit the record button?
I hit it, man, but it took a couple seconds for it to start.
So this
It's
You got
just
it all
slow.
figured out, huh?
we can't get this thing right for nothing.
No, man. Hey, that was not on us.
What was it on then?
That was on Riverside.
Okay.
It's a little bit slow in the morning.
Riverside.
Okay. Well, it may be
So-
slow, but
Hey, everybody, we're back. We've been gone. I mean, just for me to try to get Chris and Ben on here. It's just been hard. But y'all pray for me. You know, trying to get these yahoos up on here.
It's tough, Bob. I'm sorry that you got to drag us along so much. It's just
Right.
It's a rough life, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No, we've all had a whole bunch going on. So,
Bob, what you sent me this thing? You're doing a judgeship or something like that. What does that mean?
yeah, there's a hey man, I'm working for the judge now. So I'm working for both.
There's a lot of people are making
working for
license
both
plates.
judges. You know.
Do they give you the striped suit to wear too? You know.
No, I show up in my t-shirt or whatever. So
On the
It's
side of
just
the road?
Yeah. With a little stick, picking up Marlboro and Newport packs. What is that?
that's right. I have my community service. That's what I had to do. So the judge said, "Hey, you need to go out here and do your community service." So no, it's my background or whatever. When I moved back up here, a buddy of mine approached me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing some part-time judicial commissioner stuff?" And then next thing you know, the judge is calling me saying, "Hey, we could use some help. I think you'd be good." And so when it doesn't interfere, it's just a little part-time hustle or whatever you want to call it. So it's
What are you, a bailiff or something? I don't understand what that means.
no. So I'm a judicial commissioner. So if somebody arrests Chris for DUI or whatever, then they have to go before a magistrate or before a judicial commissioner to sign the warrant. So they can't. So used to, whenever I first got in law enforcement, I did my own warrants as a police officer. And then there was no checks and balances until it came to before the judge. Well, really under constitutional law, it's supposed to go before a magistrate first. And so it's a whole thing to make sure your Fourth Amendment rights weren't violated. And it's just kind of a rubber stamp on probable cause. And
This sounds like to me y'all just growing the government up there in Tennessee is what it sounds like to me.
you got them in Mississippi too. So
I didn't say it's a good thing.
yeah, no, it's more. I mean, I took an oath for the Constitution, and so it's more of a thing for it's more of a we the people side of things to make sure that there's checks and balances with law enforcement, and so it's some guys might end up shooting a skunk at 2 in the morning, out in the snow, and you never know which officer is going to show up and who he might try to take into jail. And so he's got to go present that to somebody instead of just hauling that dude to jail, And so I'm not going to say any names about who might have fired 15 rounds into a skunk hole, at 2 a.m. in the snow in Virginia. But I don't know who that
I mean,
guy
there's no
might be.
telling who it is, Bob.
No telling who that could be.
No.
But police
I mean,
getting
I
called
don't
out.
don't even know why you'd bring something up like that,
Such
But
an
there's
abstract. Who
Yeah.
would do something like
Yeah.
that? It's such a weird.
Yeah.
That's just
Weird
not even a
thing.
scenario that would happen, Bob. Crazy.
No, skunks aren't even out at in the snow. I wouldn't think but
Right.
but no. So
Well,
it's just a checks and balances thing. So you have to go through some training or whatever. So, anyways,
Okay.
that's
All
why
right.
I wasn't on here 1 week. So sorry.
So that's why. So you're like basically a cop attorney now, or something like that. Then is what it sounds like to me.
No. No, so if you come to jail, all right,
Yeah.
you have to get a bond set, all right? And so if you go to I'm going to make sure that you come, you and Ben next time you pass through Tennessee, we're going to set something up.
Hey, I already got set something up last week. I was at polishing the pulpit, and this is how it does not. This is one of them lessons I had to tell my kids. And I was leaving our cabin. I had forgot my license too. Just think about this. I forgot my license. I was leaving the cabin and
Your
going to the
license in
convention.
Mississippi or at
Yes, let's just say I'd left my license. I'd prefer not to divulge it where it was located at. Okay, but I had left my license. and I was leaving the cabin and going to the convention center, and there's just a long straight, what that road that's right there behind the golf course, but where the water park is and all.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 4-lane road down through there, and I was zipping down through there about 50 mile an hour, and I saw the cop, and he whips it on and around, and he decides that he wanted to say hello to me, and so he pulled me over, and he walks up to the car, and he's like, you know how fast you's going? So from a cop's perspective, Bob, why do you ask that question? Is it
Just
just
see if you get an admission of guilt.
I understand, but what is it? I mean, like, so does most people say if it's 35, they say 33? I mean, what do they do?
Yeah, it's all over the map. You get people that lie to you. People are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." There's humbleness will take you a long ways. Humility will.
Yeah. Well, he pulled me over, and he was like, "How fast are you going?" I was like, probably about 50." He's like, "You know what the speed limit is?" I said, "It's 45." He's like, "It's 35." And I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Well, this is just gonna get worse because I ain't even got my license." and he said he was a cool guy, and he was like, "Well, let me just take your license. I mean, I'm gonna run your tag." He said, "Give me your birth date." I told him my birth date, and he was like, "Oh, you're 43." He's like, "No," I said, 81. He was like, "Yep." He's like, 43. I was like, "Nope, it's November. I'll turn 43." He said, "Well, I'm 43." I said, "Well, that's because you're old. I'm not old yet." He said, "Well, you're definitely getting a ticket now." And
Yeah.
so he went back to his car and come back and was like, I'm talking to the boys, and they're like, "Daddy, what are we going to do?" I was like, "Son,
Daddy's going to jail. Daddy's going to jail.
yeah." I was like, "We're going to pay the ticket." I mean, like, I did wrong. Whether or not I knew I did wrong, I'm still guilty of doing wrong. I don't know what to tell you. I knew that, even then, I was still driving faster than the speed limit. I was still driving 5 or 6 miles an hour over. And so they're like, well, what happens next? I was like, "Son, you just got to take your licks." That's what Peter said. He said, if you suffer, don't suffer as an evildoer. And so if you're in a bind because you did something wrong, well, that's just life.
Mhm.
You can't ask Jesus to take away the gallows once you've done something wrong. It's just it is what it is. And I said, we're just going to have to deal with it. And he came back and he was like, "Hey man, just keep it slow." And there we went. And I wondered if it's because of my dashing good looks, my ability,
We'll keep account. We'll wonder. Is this
my charming abilities in orations, to be able to talk my way out of a ticket, or if it's that they have such a huge revenue generator that the local magistrate's like, "Look, don't write piles of tickets. We got to keep these people coming into town. If they're not acting stupid, just pat them on the tail and send them on their way." I wondered which one of those it was.
what time of day was it?
It was I was going to speak, but some days I had to speak like 2 or 3 times a day, and so I don't remember, when it was that I was going, but I know that I had my because I finished up on a Tuesday. I had like 8 of them to do, and I finished on a Tuesday, and I was
Poor
like, finally.
Chris, poor Chris. He had to speak 8 times on a Tuesday at PTP.
No. Tuesday I was done. I was done with it. So Wednesday I was completely free. So I was kind of like everybody. I told them like that Tuesday night. I was like, "Finally, guys, I get to go back to my normal clothes." And then, so Wednesday I could go back to, because when you got one at this hour, then one 2 hours later, and you just don't.
You got to wear a suit all day.
Yes, and I hate that.
Did they make y'all wear a suit?
No, they even, like, somebody always ruins it every year and ask, like, "What should I dress like?" And
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed that all the directors, I know them all. They're great guys, and Mark and Eddie and Al and those guys, they always wear a suit and a tie every day. And they did send out a little thing. It was like highly suggested that, our speakers wear a tie. And like, really and truly, you get about this much tie on me if I wear a tie.
Yeah, because look at your beard. You know what I mean?
You get about this much tie. And so it looks more like I got a napkin hanging out of one of my shirts.
Well, and I think you should say this, that, hey, you're always wearing a tie with your beard. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Well, I didn't wear a tie, either way. And as a matter of fact,
No harm, no foul.
Yeah, one lesson I had to do, I split it with Cliff Goodwin, and it was like how to use church events and stuff like that for how to use church events in order to be able to reach your friends and stuff like that. And I just wore a t-shirt then. I was just one. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna. So I told him when I got up there, I was like, Cliff, he always dresses to the nines. So I figured that on average, we're pretty well taken care of dressed here. And so, but other than that, it's just the way that it is, and I get it. There's some formality to this and everything like that. And they are recording them now. I didn't know that, but they apparently been recording them for years, because I got somebody that said, I saw your lesson and blah, 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 blah years back. And I didn't even know they'd been doing that. They've been videoing them for years. I knew they'd been doing the little MP3
Audio.
thing. Yeah. But I'll tell you this, Bob, we get listeners from all over. I had a brother from Minnesota that came down. Okay. And Thursday, we got there on Thursday, and he started messaging me, and he was like, are y'all here yet? I was like, no, we're on the way, brother. We're coming. And he said, we got something for you. Well, when I got there, you know what he had for me, Bob? I don't even remember this episode, but you know what he had for me? Guess what he had?
No telling.
2 cases of
Frank No Beans.
I didn't check. He had 2 cases of Sun Drop for me.
Okay.
That he had brought from Minnesota, and he was like, it's crazy that
They got Sun Drop in Minnesota.
I thought the same thing, and he was like, "This is the cheap stuff," and I was like, "I understand. It's the cheap stuff, but that's just what I like,
All right. So if y'all are listening and you drank a Sun Drop, tell us where you drank a Sun Drop in what state. All
now,
right?
Chris, this is why I never need to go to PTP, because if I go up there, and we have all these podcast listeners, man, a lot of cripples are going to try to, go ones on me,
right.
play me in one-on-one,
That's right.
And,
they want to see how they stack up.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So.
Either that or people in the Brotherhood are going to try to beat Ben up.
Right.
For that.
Cripple.
But I'll have to say, though, if you're going to grab a hold of Ben, I mean, you're grabbing a hold of all 155 pounds. But I have seen some big dudes grab a hold of Ben in the swimming pool, and Ben got
twice his size.
Yes, and 3 times the size. And Ben has literally he was Ben the immerser, in the pool.
Right.
So Ben can hold his own, that's for sure.
Actually 3 times his own, apparently. He's like an ant, But the blessing is that, man, when those things, you could see those things like that, it's a real blessing, because you get to see, like, Bob, this is why it's important that we do this. Is not because we're important. It's just because, the Brotherhood needs to have, these conversations together. And I do constantly need Sun Drop. I just don't get it down here. And so there's a real blessing in it.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, he moved up here from Florida, and he was talking about they were going fishing the other night. And, man, I'll just tell you, just seeing guys grow in the church. One guy got up to do the Lord's Supper talk, and he said, I thought I had this figured out. And he said, I got up, and he said, I gave my first public speech about this time last year in the church and doing the Lord's Supper talk. And he said, I think I changed my mind on what I said. And he said, I got up and said, ain't none of us worthy, and he said, more I've thought about that. And he said, the more I've studied on it, he said, I think we are worthy, to take the Lord's Supper. And so, anyways, he's just talking about him growing, and then he just said that, he said, it's Jesus that makes us worthy. It's not our own self, but it's Christ that makes us worthy. But Christ came down, and he sat with sinners, he sat with tax collectors, he was around them all the time. And he said, it's not that their worthiness made them worthy. It's because the eyes of Jesus had compassion, and he saw them. But anyways, so that was old Dusty, and Ben went to go. Another Ben who just moved up here. It went to go fishing. They were going fishing the other night. Ben said, I was getting water.
Florida.
Yeah, Ben said, I was getting waters out of my truck, to go in the boat or whatever. And Ben's a road paver, and he's a superintendent for a paving company. anyways, Dusty's a big farmer, and he said, man, he said, Dusty, you want some water? He's like, no, I got these 6 sun drops right here. He said, I reckon they'll get me till the sun comes up. And so he's not taking any water on the boat, just taking sun drop. So
Yeah. That we need to get us some unscripted podcast shirts, like sponsored by Sundrop or something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
if
that
you
might
know,
be
you
good.
know. Yeah.
that might be good.
The,
That's a
well, the thing about it is, Bob, is like, we like 1 Corinthians, like this is what I want to talk about today if we could, but 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse number 31. I know, listen, I get it. 1 Corinthians 11, 12, 13, 14, it's all about the Lord's Supper and the assembly and all those kind of things. But in 12, 13, and 14 is really just kind of like the how the miracles roll out, or not, I shouldn't say roll out, but, they need to understand why they have them and that there's going to be an end to them in chapter 13. And then chapter 14 is how they use them in the assembly. But there's just an important verse here that, that just smacks me between the eyes. Because, you got to figure the end of chapter 12. I know the end of chapter 12 is what we put in there. We've talked about this before. That we added I say we, Chris and Bob didn't do it, but the biblical transcribers or translators are the ones that did it. But, chapter 12 ends, as it were, a kind of a central thought about something as it moves into 13. And 13 is this thought about the idea that the miracles are going to go away. Well, look at what he says at the end of this in chapter 12 and verse, before he tells them all the prophecy, all the speaking in tongues, all the miraculous stuff is going to cease. Look what he says in verse 31. He says, but earnestly desire the best gifts, and yet I show you a more excellent way.
Amen.
I don't know, Bob. I don't know about you in your life, but man, I have learned now that I do not have to. And this is Chris, because I'm a detail planner, Bob. I mean, when I say that, if I'm going to make something, it's got a CAD model, it's got dimensions, it's got everything. And you've seen a lot of things. I mean, we're sitting at something. You sit here with me while we pop riveted the holes with calipers. We marked where we're going to put the holes in it just so it'd be uniform. But I've learned some powerful lessons in the last, just with the podcast, in the sense that 1 Corinthians 12 says that I don't have to answer everything. I just have to earnestly desire, and I'll be shown a better way. And Bob, I just think about so many things, the blessings of being able to do. When we sit down and did this was just upstairs in the youth room, during the COVID foolishness. And we started this as just a way for the, KW to, just have us do a Bible class together. We just thought we'd do it together instead of just standing there looking at one of us for 45 minutes. And this is where we're at now, right? And,
absolutely.
And we just desired, we just desired the greater thing. We just wanted to be able to help and serve and not, of course, we could care less about the name of our names getting out there, but we just wanted to get his name out there more. And yet he's shown us a more excellent way. Just think about all the technology, all the lessons we've learned, all the people we've been able to reach, the people that have been baptized into Christ from the podcast, the people that have had their faith strengthened. Including mine. Including mine. All those things. That was just us, asking the question, and God's still filling in those blanks for us.
And he continuously will. And I think that some people think that they have to have it all figured out. And that's just kind of like that farmer, that he got up to speak Sunday morning, and, he didn't have it all figured out. He wasn't wrong either time that he talked. Because we're not worthy to take the Lord's Supper, but yet Jesus makes us worthy, And
ain't that a blessing?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so, but what you see through that is he's grown, and then but part of him cutting his teeth with public speaking is there's no better place to cut your teeth, public speaking, than before the body of Christ and before your own church family, and talking about Jesus. And and the Lord's Supper provides a great way. Well, some guys think I have to have it all figured out to be able to talk to You don't have to have it all figured out. You know,
No.
partaking in a worthy manner is realizing I'm really not worthy. I have to have Jesus to be worthy to partake of this Lord's Supper.
And you're never going to do it all. I
You're never
mean,
going to.
don't you think that's here's one of the lessons, I don't know if y'all do this at Capitol Hill or not, but we still don't do the Devo after Wednesday night Bible class here. Do y'all do Bible class in the Devo or not?
We do a Devo and then Bible class.
Okay.
And so it's a training ground for us. It's a guy, it's just a new guy. Wednesday nights are generally training nights.
Yeah, well, we use our Wednesday night for our men to teach. That's kind of our training ground. They teach the Bible class. But, here's the thing is like, I think that honestly, the reason why so many, I don't want to say dread because it certainly paints a negative, but, the Devo doing it afterwards for us at KW, it was the way we did it back home too. And so we Bible class and then come in here for the Devo. And then what would happen is like, if Bob's never spoke or he's only spoke one time in the last 3 years, Bob gets up there and Bob has prepared for 2 weeks for something that he's going to talk about for 90 seconds. So he's got way too much information. And because Bob has prepared all that information, Bob feels like, well, he's
obligated to do it. Yeah.
He's obligated because he's prepared. He's learned. So also he realizes because he's learned from his preparation that this is really important stuff. They ought to know this too. And you kind of precipitate this thing. And before you know it, we've got a discourse on the Holy Spirit in the book of Isaiah. And really, what it is that we didn't have to, how do you say, we didn't take away when we took away that. Does that make sense? We didn't take away from the church when the elders took away that.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
This was a point where it was addition by subtraction. And so now it's a block party, after Bible class is over with. I mean, we go from 6:30 to 7:15 and they still here at 8:30 at nighttime. And before, when you had somebody that, they've been waiting, they have Bible class and they got to get all their kids inside and keep them sitting down and don't let them rummage around and fiddle and monkey around for 20 or 30 minutes. And then they just ready to go because they're tired of keeping kids wrangling. So when Bob walks by Chris and Bob says to Chris, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. I just want to get out the door. Right. Because my kids, I want to get them. I'm about fed up. You about to see me hit the pressure switch on the kids. And so what we learned is that we just desired the greater things. And what's happened is that because of that, the time that we did spend getting out the door because of the kind of the built-in, you're packaging this time with your kids and everything. What that did was it allowed us to just let our kids go to the playground and then we could have those conversations and build those stronger relationships amongst ourselves.
Yeah. Now you got a 15-minute built-in fellowship and so certainly
that turns into an hour. I mean, like we did
right.
our groups last night and, we go from, we do them here in the church and, what time did y'all's group finish last night, Ben?
I think we finished right at like 6, because I shot over to the student center to help get ready for the youth Devo.
Yeah. I mean, we finished about 10 after, and that was because I had to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Our group was still talking about the things we needed to talk about at 10 minutes after.
Yeah. We could have continued on, and that, what a blessing that is,
Yeah.
Because that's the whole purpose of our groups, that we can be more united.
Yeah. And what room do y'all meet in?
The college / ladies room.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but we didn't have to answer, we just had to ask the question, how can we get better?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like here's one, Bob, did Ben send you those pictures of the student center Saturday night? Did you see those pictures?
You talking about the Pakistan group?
Yes, man.
Yeah, no, I saw it on Facebook. I was talking to Taylor about it on my way back.
Can you believe that, Ben? I mean, don't you remember when I first got here? How many? So, what year did you get to KW, Bob?
December of 2016.
Okay, so when I got here,
right after Trump was elected. Sorry.
Yeah, when I got here in August of 19,
the student
center was there was no student center because the school was out. But when I went back, the first couple of weeks were always the kind of the big hitter weeks, where people are coming in and everything. The kids are there for the first time, or mamas and daddies are making them go. But like it would be like by the end of the semester, it'd be like 5 or 6 kids there. You know what I mean?
I know, yeah. It could get challenging. And one of the things I know, Ben, you changed the night, didn't you? Didn't you?
Yeah,
change
we're
it
on
to
Tuesday nights now.
Yeah, because you're not competing with those fraternities and sororities anymore, and so that makes a difference. But there's always it's good whenever you get some new breath and new breath of air in a place or whatever, and Brad and Lauren did their things.
Absolutely.
And also I'm full time too.
That's right. Yeah, that's the difference is that, and that's, Brad he's starting his family at that point, and all those things. And Ben, he's young and he can do all these things. And Ben has, like you think about this, Bob, when they all decided that they're going to make the student center a place that's like, we can have healthy conversations. We can talk about the things we need to. We want to make it a place where your kids can come and be evangelistic and learn how to teach their friends. Bob, I don't even know if you've thought about this, Ben, but in asking this question, like all of our kids, Bob and I got 2 kids that's just about ready to hit the college level. And we worry about our kids being, I don't know, faithful or losing their faith or I heard a guy say that 90% of the kids between 18 and 25 leave the church, religion in general. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I will say this.
Some of them come back, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, he did say this: between 25 and 31, 46 of those return. 46% of them return. So you're losing. You're really only losing about half at that point, right? So the numbers scare you. But I will say this: all that being said, you think about this. Ben had between, I don't know how many was in that.
It was like 80 to 100.
But you had about 30 Pakistani kids over there that night.
No, well, we had about only 20 Americans. The rest were Pakis and Bengalis.
Yeah, so just think about that. Those kids are coming here with the same challenges our kids are coming here with.
Sure.
That religion is just superstition to them. We think about kids. We think about the ones that, Ben, tell a story about the kid in the Bible.
Oh, yeah. So we're having the Pakistani meal, and it was just it was an outreach event where we kind of partnered with the Pakistani Student Association. We hosted them, and I purposely tried to put out Bibles everywhere, right? And there's a guy that came to the meal, and he was in the game room, and there's a Bible sitting on the coffee table, and he looked at it, and he looked at one of our students, and he said, "Hey, can I pick this up and read it?" And so he just started reading the Bible, and I went to talk to him, and that was the first time he had ever seen a Bible. That's the first time he had ever read out of the Bible before.
Now just think about the power of that, Bob.
And Brian, he had, that night about 3 or 4 Bible studies. I got pictures of it. And that night, it led to more Bible studies and 3 Pakistani students coming on our college retreat this weekend.
And one guy was, how many was 2 people baptized on the retreat this week?
We had 2 people baptized.
Yeah,
it wasn't the Pakistanis, but
yeah, but you're still teaching the gospel.
Absolutely.
Right? One of these kids' daddies is a preacher, right?
Yeah, a Pentecostal preacher.
Yeah, so just think about the power of asking the question, desiring a more, the way Paul says it, desire the best gifts, and yet I show you a more excellent way.
I remember praying about this, KW, remember at the beginning of the year, we prayed about these things. And so we just got to go make it happen. The Lord, he's on our side.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's going to give the increase. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Bob, what's some lessons that you've learned and just desiring, and letting God take care of the rest of those things?
Yeah, well, there's 2 verses that come to mind first to start with. Ezra 7, God's people have been in incarceration, slavery, however you want to say it, bondage. The Babylonians took them over. They put a bad king in there, and because of, Manasseh's mess that even though Josiah takes over and does a good job for a while, it's still God's like, hey, because Josiah's been this way, I'm kind of prolonging this thing, but because of Manasseh's decisions, y'all going into captivity.
Yeah,
and so
no getting around it.
Yeah, there's no getting around it. So they went into captivity, and so it's I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. 70 years, and so 70 years. The Persians had taken over the Babylonians, and so now they're getting to come back. Was the rebels rebuilt the temple, but they had built a building, but their hearts weren't there. Well, now Ezra's coming back to try to turn hearts back toward the Lord, and Ezra's just such a good leader that. Anyways, Ezra 7 and verse 10, it said, "For Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord and to do it, and to teach statutes and ordinances in Israel." And we have to be people that you don't have it all figured out.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody had anything figured out. But what Ezra had done is he prepared his heart to be seeking the law of the Lord and to be somebody who's going to be a teacher.
I'll read you a Bible verse that I wrote down in my personal study yesterday. Psalm 40 and verse 8. Psalm 40 and verse 8. Look what Psalm 40 and verse 8 says. When I do my studies in the morning, and look what he says. Psalm 40 and verse 8, "I delight to do your will, O my God, and your law is within my heart."
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to do what you want me to do, Lord. I read this in several versions, and this gets a little bit poetic because it's the carryover from the King James, but some of the versions say, "I just want to do what you want me to do and put your law in my heart."
Absolutely. And that's so Ezra, he's wanting to do these things, and we have to be people who are seeking the Lord, but not just seeking the Lord with my coffee in the morning, but saying, okay, because there's this, we have this kind of three things. And I think I talked to you about this probably 5 years ago at KW. Well, we've implemented it at Capitol Hill too. And it's just a little triangle: connect, grow, and serve. And we want to connect with God at the top of that triangle, and then grow our relationship with God. But then coming over here to this side is the bottom side of this triangle is the point that we would serve the Lord. And then that puts us right back up to another connection. So connect, grow, and then serve, and to the point that we're going to connect again. And that idea is this triangle is, it's a revolving thing, that the more that I grow, the more I want to serve. But some people grow that relationship with the Lord, and it's only the one side of the triangle that they connect with the Lord and they grow. They connect and they grow, but they don't ever serve the Word of God to people. They don't ever, or maybe somebody just connects and serves, and they're living kind of in a situation where they're really just kind of in a works-based system where I'm connecting with, and serving and connecting and serving, but their faith's not really growing. Right. And they're not, there's a Stephen and Philip, came to the point that they went from serving tables to serving the Word of God to people, in Acts 6. And then you got 7 and 8, and you look at the people that were impacted because they chose to not only serve tables, but serve the Word.
Arguably the Apostle Paul, just think about it. He stood there when he held Stephen's clothes, and don't you think that you can hear his echoes of those sentiments when he tells the stories about him being a blasphemer and persecutor of the church? You can hear those things when they say that, and it's because
he's like it's God. He's like, there's no other way. And he's such a champion, because for that group of people, he was a Pharisee of Pharisees. And for that, the more I read the New Testament, the more I realize how many challenges they had with Judaism and trying to go back to that law system and that works-based system. And it was caught up.
It was ingrained in them, Bob. It just was, it's just almost like their hair color.
Paul's like, hey, even Barnabas got carried away with this. He was carried off by it. And I don't know if Barnabas came back or any of those things, but at some point Barnabas come to Christianity. He's held in real high regards, but I think it's in the book of Galatians that Paul's talking about how he was carried away by this. But us preparing our hearts to the point that we're going to continue to grow and to do these things. And You don't have to have it all down. And
No, and you just got to let the Lord work those things out. I mean, at the end of the day, Bob, I mean, you just think about the way the student center looks now. That's just because we desired a greater thing. I mean, I'm taking, your boys, my boys to the tool show in Chicago next week. Well, we had our open house last week or whatever it was, or week before last, I reckon. Like, Bob, there was 50 people there at the beginning for 4 spaces. I mean, just think about that. We got 4 spaces in the fall, and there was 50 people there. And I even planned on doing this. I had planned on doing this little project with everybody. But when all them people got there, Ben, it won't no way that was going to happen, was it?
Not at all.
I mean, they were in there like, how many ever people can fit in my yard?
Yeah, Chris's yard looked like a used car lot.
I'm telling you, in my neighbor's yard, actually, too. And
the internet knew about it too. I'm over in Ellijay, Georgia at a camp teaching or doing a weekend thing. The Georgia School of Preaching put on a thing. And anyways, had some different guys there. And then I came on Sunday to speak and then spoke at their church that night. But I was having breakfast with these guys, and I was told, hey, that we're going to start at 9. Well, I showed up at 8:30 or whatever. Well, we didn't start till 10, so I got to sit there with the guys while they were having breakfast and things. And I'll say this one plug: the Georgia School of Preaching. What this side is it's there's some in school guys, but there's also some online things. And so if you're looking for more knowledge, you can have a free course and you can take it online and still do your 9 to 5 and whatever it might be. But if you want more biblical knowledge, you want something free, look up Georgia School of Preaching, because you can do it for free online. Anyways, that's a shameless plug, but I mean, they're not getting anything for that. But it's like, these are things that I'm learning too. Well, I'm talking with some of these guys around this table, and they were like, where were you at? I was like, I was down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. They said, I think there's a church down there that's opened up a machine shop for somebody or to teach kids the gospel. I said, yeah, they have. I said, me and that guy do a podcast all the time. He's like, are you serious? I said, yes. It just opened up a whole conversation. But, there was, it's just neat that, other people are seeing, people from Georgia are seeing what Next Tech's doing now.
Well, they're seeing what the Lord is doing, right? Because you know as well as I do, Bob, that I'm rough as a cob and I don't know how to do all this stuff. I just know that the Lord, he just wants he wants to show up in his people's lives. And I mean, I get it. We walk by faith and not by sight. I get all those things. And I don't mean to discredit any of those things, but let's just look at the little bit of the biblical history. Like you think about in 1 Kings 6 with Elijah and Gehazi, when they're surrounded by the army and he just kind of takes them out and says, look up there, lift up your eyes. It's like one time he's like, Lord, just show him that we're not outnumbered. They are. Or when Jesus does the miracles, when those things were parables and teaching too, when God parted the Red Sea, I mean, all those things he had to do to show them. He didn't say y'all walk across the water. He said, I just make the land dry for you. I mean, a lot of those things is because God wants to show up in his people's lives. And
yeah, here's another thing, another side of that. Going back to your verse of 1 Corinthians 13, earnestly desire the best gifts, and I'll show you a more excellent way. The verses right before that, he's like, are all apostles, are all prophets, are all teachers, are all workers of miracles? I just want people to think about this for just a minute. You got people in the church in the first century that through the miraculous power of the Spirit, that limited to that first century thing, we've talked about that on the podcast too, that there's this miraculous ability that people have to heal people and to do things. And so it caused problems with the church of Corinth because of the diversity of gifts that they had, but yet God desired unity, but yet there was division over it. Immaturity. But here's the blessing that I want everybody in the church to think about today. You go from miracles, and he says, I'm going to show you a better way.
Yeah.
And he said, here's the better way. Here's the better way. Love. Absolutely. And I don't mean tolerance. He's just saying when you got two people in the church who are truly forgiving each other, when you would think it with a 20/20 vision, you're like, there's no way that these two people could ever see eye to eye anymore. And then here's what the Lord does. Like he just brings them straight together.
Absolutely.
And he says, this is the better way.
And you're stronger, right? I mean, just think of Bob. I mean, you just can't describe how, there's a guy, I need one more machine really to get us to where we'll have all the machines in the shop will have the exact same control on it. I never imagined that I would get here with this, right? This guy reaches out to me and he's like, hey, I've got a machine I'd like to help you guys out with. I was like, well, where's it at? Bob, he sent me the message, and you know where this machine was at? It was 4 miles from where I was staying last week.
Oh, wow.
4 miles. You understand? It could have been anywhere in America, and this guy's from Chicago and moved down here. It's 4 miles from the cabin where I was staying last week. And I talked to a brother that owns a shipping company there in Chattanooga. He's going to bring them down here to us. I mean, Bob, do you think that God, do you think I can work any of this stuff out? No. It's just God. Listen, I had a guy come up to me and he's like, I was like, guys, if we just ask the right questions, they will be answered. They will be answered. We've just, and you can't get around this. This is an absolute direct, and I don't know how to say this, equation, but the amount of truth that a person or a church is willing to accept about themselves is directly proportional to the amount that they'll grow. And you can never get around that. And this guy, he said, I heard about this church that's got a Votech school or a machine shop. I saw a news video about it last week. I was like, man, ain't that a blessing that the Brotherhood's thinking like that? Those are the kind of questions we need to be asking. And so you think about the blessing of that. He came back to me about 2 days later. He was like, I think you're the guy in that video. And I was like, well, I was, but I just wanted you to stew on it a little bit. I didn't want you to think I didn't want him to capture and think oh, I got to ask this guy a bunch of questions now. I just wanted him to stew on it some. And he came back to me a couple of days later. And,
we had, I think church people kind of struggle sometimes, and if we're real honest with ourselves, our Sunday night sometimes it's hard for us to retain people, and it's hard for us to get visitors in on a Sunday night. People, it's a challenge. And so, anyways, our guys, we've had some success on some Sunday nights with things, whether it's meeting in homes or small group type things. Everybody's together at the same place, but
at Capitol Hill, you're talking about?
Yeah, Capitol Hill. Yeah. Anyways, these guys about 5 weeks ago, they said, you know what? They said, we want to, let's do a chicken wing cook-off at the church on a Sunday night. I was like, idea. Oh yeah, son, let me tell you something. For 300 miles, I guarantee you there wasn't any wings better than 300 miles than what happened at Capitol Hill last Sunday night. Anyways, and you go from a church that's having, we had 90% attendance on a Sunday night because we had a chicken wing cook-off. People who would never come on a Sunday, who wouldn't come on a Sunday night, they was there from chicken wings. And so, anyways, there were 12 pans of chicken wings, and man, it was fine. And it's just, I mean, them
at your table, or 12 pans at your table, or just 12 pans for everybody?
Yeah, 12 pans for everybody. But these guys are cooking 100 wings, and and then there was a whole table full of other food to go along with the chicken wing cook-off. We had to set up a third table just for the dessert,
tater salads and everything. Yeah,
I mean, it was awesome. Anyways. But that's one thing we're talking about our meeting yesterday was we're like, hey, we had 70 people, 68, 70 people that were there. Well, anyways, these guys have been talking smack all 5 weeks, about who's going to cook wings better, whatever. I mean, we had guys leaving during the invitation song Sunday morning, just to go home and get their wings on the smoker,
Right.
And anyways, you going down, everybody's going down, whatever. Well, listen. It takes a humble heart to realize I need to be doing something better for the Lord, and I don't have it all figured out, but I'm gonna let God do these things. I'm gonna start working with Him. Anyways, here's the best thing that could have ever happened. All these guys jawing back and forth, and I hear guys saying, "Hey, what do you think about number 8?" And these guys, "Hey, Robert, you try number 6?" And And I'd be like, yeah, man, I can't hardly choke them things down. And that's awful. I don't know who made that thing. Anyways, so they're going on and on. Well, we had a kid. All right. So you got all these guys jawing, they opened up these pans and Dallas is over there, pulling the,
like
smelling.
them guys
He's going down by the whole thing, smelling.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are
Them
you
wine
doing?
sniffer
He's like,
guys.
I'm smelling the wings.
Yeah.
So, anyways, they started tallying the votes. You know who won? A 10-year-old kid. And I'm just going to tell you, his wings were not the best. All right. I know which number he was. I was pretty shocked. You should have seen all these guys. Like, and so little Easton, he's been a Christian about a year now. He got this little old trophy and he's standing up there, he gets his picture taken, all this kind of stuff. Well,
what's on top of the trophy? A chicken?
I don't know what they put on it, but Easton was over there with his little buddies sitting on the wall. He's over there they eating chicken. He's like, y'all know I'm number 3. I cooked number 3. So what a blessing to having a whole bunch of kids in the church with you is you got like 30 kids that voted for Easton's thing. All these guys are jawing about who's the best, and he just humbled himself saying, I need some help on you if y'all help me vote. So they voted him and he won. Anyways,
ain't that something? So it didn't matter whose was the best. It just got who picked the most.
Who got picked the most. And,
Amen.
and he got picked the most. He had good wings, but they weren't the best. I'll tell you that. But
right.
The Lord said, I'll show you.
Whose was the best,
you
Bob?
a better way. Huh?
Who had the best wings?
Well, I'll tell you, I voted for number 12. And 4, 12, and then 9 through 12 were 4 and 12 and 9 through 12 were my picks. But there's
what you made.
No, I actually didn't make any. I didn't want to cause any division in the brotherhood. I didn't want anybody else to lose. You
just wanted them to fight.
I just wanted to come eat wings. Anyways, it was fine. But when it comes to love and humbling yourself, sometimes asking somebody for help is a big thing. And
you just got to desire the better gifts. You desire the better gifts, and you know what? The Lord takes care of all that other stuff in the middle. We'll be making chicken wings and making chips, and before you know, people will be meeting us in heaven because of it.
And after we had those wings, we had a worship assembly. We sang like 6 songs, had some prayer, gave a lesson, and it was it was powerful,
Amen.
And the Lord says, I'm gonna show you a better way, and partner with Him. And if you make your plans with God, make them big.
Amen.
Make them big.
This is the Unscripted Podcast.